Hello, everybody. I am at my usual spot working hard. And as you can see, I've finished up Dengar. I'm now working on another Star Wars piece. Um, if you look at my shorts, you'll see where I've worked on this one. On earlier videos, I was working on this one, and I stopped working on this one to do the King Cryptid and to do the Dengar piece. So now I'm back working on this one again. And this one is a Star Wars piece. It's based on the Star Wars Marvel comics. This is based on like issues like 7 through like 25 or 28. So you can see all the different characters. And this is one from earlier. A lot of characters were created from like the era when like Count Valentino, Carmine Infantino was doing the book. Walt Simonson did Valance here. I'll go back and we'll talk about this one later. Howard Chaykin, he did the Magnificent Seven characters, and then they had a stand-in for Darth Vader. Remember, in the comic books, they were told they can't have Darth Vader interacting with the Star Wars characters, so they created this guy as a stand-in. So, but first things I want to talk about, like this week on the Professionals, it was on Andy Smith's channel. Remember, Andy Smith has a new campaign starring Cordrath the Awakening instead of Cordrath the Reckoning. Cordrath the Reckoning was the first one. It was Andy's first campaign to do over 100,000, and so we're anticipating the second one will do as well. This one's called Cordrath the Awakening. So, and right off the bat, when they started the show, they immediately went awry and started talking about other things. One of the things that they talked about, which I was shopping, so I couldn't comment on it, was they're talking about tools of the trade and how like Walt primarily just used like a 102, but how well he used 102. But then they started talking about how like you don't just have one 102, how like a brand new 102 lays down the ink differently than one that's semi-used versus one that's completely shot. I do the same thing. Okay, this one's one I've been using for a while. It's a 102. I've been using it for a while, and it lays down a really good dot. Okay, I can do it this way with the ink coming this way, or I can flip the nib over and lay the dots down. You get a much finer dot when you when you have it that way. Now, what I do also is this nib over here. It's also 102. What I did was I snapped the end off of it. This one, the nib is completely shot. So when I try to lay down dots like this, they just don't lay down. So what I have to do is if I just want to do really fine dots, that's when I pull out that one and I use that one. So the same thing goes with like if I don't want to do the mechanical parts of the cyborg parts here, or in death, if I want to work on the blaster and give it a mechanical look, I'll use what's called a 109. It's a much stiffer nib. With these nibs, if you notice, it has an oval in the top of it. On the 109, it has a circle. So it lays down a much more uniform dot, as if you're using a rapidiograph. I personally don't like using rapidios when I do my work because the dot looks sterile and it looks very mechanical. Those that are able to get a organic dot using a rapidio, I applaud them. Silent Stippler, she does that. She does a very good job, but she works with a rapidio. But one thing I notice also with her using a rapidio is she works on much larger. She works instead of a small scale, she works at a larger scale. So that's the reason why she's able to put in much more tone to show that gradation. Whereas me, because I'm working small, I will see how I just like dark, already going to light. So, but that's how I do it, and that's one of those are the tricks of the trade. Another thing I'll show you here is his hair here. So we got the hair. We start small, and then we put more pressure on it to get the bigger dot. Okay, so that way we can see how we get that feel of light to dark. And I'll go in here and I'll do that. And then what I'll do is then I'll work the tone in behind it. Okay, another thing also I'll do is I'll do another line here. And I'll put this one already going dark because this is the underside of the hair. So this is the upper side, this is the underside. Okay, so I'm already going in dark, putting second pass in. So it's much darker. Okay, and then from here we're going into a black and we're doing the fade. So we're just going to really hit it hard with the dots and really close together so you get that blackness. So as he's bleeding out of the blackness of space to see his image. So that's a tricky thing to do in any, regardless of whether you're doing brush or you're doing quill pen, doing even if you're doing like let's say cross hatching. It's very difficult, and you can't just do it. It takes time to really get that feel of someone bleeding out of the blackness. So, but no, I really enjoyed it, especially when they're talking about like how like brushes, inks, nibs. One of the things that they were talking about also is like different inks they use. I use, let me show you here. I use FW. That's the ink I use. I like how it lays the dots down. But again, I use FW ink almost the way you would use a brush or a nib. Older ink, when it gets really gummy up, that's when I pull out the brush and I just lay down the brush because see how it's nice and thick. Whereas if you use a brand new ink, it's more water, it's more gray. So I'll use that. And same thing also, so when I'm getting to the point where I'm going to really light dot, many times what I'll do is I'll use an older ink because it's thicker and it doesn't bleed through the reservoir. So it doesn't matter how much you hammer on the paper with the ink, it still comes out as a fine dot. Even though it's at the bottom, you'd think it'd be thicker, it'd be a thicker gloppy dot. That also has how I'm applying the ink also with the nib. If I was using like a quill pen, it'll be much more gloppy. So, but you know, I enjoyed it, and they went into Walt Simonsons' career, going over all the stuff they did. The three books that they didn't even address, which I was surprised, is they didn't mention any of Walt's work for Star Wars. Many people wouldn't because even though Walt did such a great job, Walt's inks were overpowered by Tom Palmer. The Star Wars book, if you talk to Walt, if you talk to Ron Friends, Bob McLeod, they'll all say the same thing, that Star Wars was really Tom Palmer's book and not theirs because of the fact that he was so overpowering with his inks. And he really gave Star Wars, when Marvel had the license originally, he gave Star Wars that signature look. And after the movies were over, they were really limited by George Lucas as to what they could do. So as a result, I would say about a year and a half after the movie was over, they ended the Star Wars book because they really didn't have anything to be able to do with it. Then later on, when Dark Horse got the book, they were able to do much more with it, along the lines of along with the permission of George Lucas of what they could do. So, but no, Walt did a great job with Star Wars. They didn't mention even though they kind of mentioned how like Walt as a writer, Walt got his start writing on Battlestar Galactica. I learned that from, I got the Dynamite Artist Edition of that book, of that series. And in the introduction, Walt talks about how like the reason why that's kind of near and dear to his heart is because that was the book that he was able to write for the first time. He got to write his first story in Battlestar Galactica. And then later on, this was what got him other writing jobs. Probably led to him being able to do Thor. Remember how one of his pinnacle works is Thor. Another book that he did that a lot of people don't take notice to is Raiders of the Lost Ark, the adaptation. He wrote it and did the covers. Big John Buscema did the pencils, and Klaus Janson did the inks. I like looking at that one just for it, because here's the thing. When you do a adaptation, because you have limited space, especially for a big epic movie, by and large, most of the time, you're only given 2 to 4 issues to do an adaptation from it. Now, Star Wars was different. It was given 6 issues to do the adaptation. But most times during that time, they were only given 4 issues. Or in cases, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, they were only given 3 issues. So as a result, Walt had to condense the story into 3 issues. So as a result, you would have a lot more panels in the book than you normally would have, because they're trying to cram so much story in. So I always found that interesting, how like the books that you could tell that maybe they were thinking about being able to utilize the continuous series afterwards. They would do maybe like 4 issues, and then like The Last Starfighter, or when they did the adaptation for Greystoke with Chris Lambert, Blade Runner, they only did 2 issues for those series. And that was all part of the marketing campaign from the studio and Marvel. And maybe the deal was only the studio be like, oh, we'll let you do 2 issues, or we'll let you do 3 issues. So they didn't have the freedom to maybe do the grandiose storytelling like in the movie. The whole point of having the comic was to generate interest with the kids to go see the movie. So, but yeah, I flipped it over because it's getting towards the end of this nib, and it's almost at the end of the video because I gotta get out of here. We have an appointment. We have to go talk to someone. There's some big moves. There's some big changes coming up in the lives of Miss Stippling and I. It has to do with this appointment. If I may or may not be able to make Danger Vanessa's the chat tonight. If I am, I'll probably make the announcement. If not, soon after, I'll make the announcement of these big changes going on in our lives. So, short video today, but I'm still having fun doing this. I hope you guys are having fun watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And then, of course, also remember, like I said, Andy Smith's got Cordrath, the Awakening. And then you also have, who else do you have? You've got Graham with his book. And remember, I will put it in it. R.T. Bear is fulfilling Black and White right now. So if you haven't, go over and you're going to want to get a copy of that soon, because that campaign will not be open for much longer. So, but guys, you guys have a great day. I'm going to have a great day, and even though I will have periods during the day where life might be a little stressful, I'm just going to take it all one dot at a time.